We're speaking with the children of Peter Blair about the honor of him being inducted in the National Wrestling Hall of Fame this week. And we've got 2 sons and a daughter. Why don't you introduce yourselves for everybody for me? Start over here.
My name is John Blair, and I'm the youngest of the 6.
Okay.
I'm Mary, and I'm number 5.
And I'm Peter Jr., and I'm the number 2 child.
Now, tell us what your thought was when you heard that the Wrestling Hall of Fame wanted to make a big deal about your dad's wrestling career.
Well, we were extremely honored, to say the least. And I'll tell you what, when we, kind of heard about the preparatory stuff and everything, of course the family was really proud, and we started making plans to all get together. And all the children except for one got here. I will tell you what, the Hall of Fame has gone beyond our expectations from the standpoint of what they've done, the recognition they've given them, and the hospitality has been out of this world. And for me personally, one more thing. Doing some investigation on my dad, knowing who he wrestled and the era he wrestled in, meeting a lot of his, the guys he wrestled with or against in those years, it's been quite an honor also.
Mary, what do you think?
I just want to say this has been absolutely surreal because we had no idea what we were about to walk into. If my dad were here, he would be truly humbled by the company he's with. And it is so exciting, like my brother just mentioned, to meet the people he's talked about his entire life. And we actually feel now that the puzzle is put together of his story. And what's been so exciting about the National Hall of Fame, Leroy and Krista have done an incredible job to fill in the gaps for people like Peter actually saw my dad wrestle, but John and I were too young. And we actually got to see our dad wrestle, besides the living room floor, actually see him in the NCAA championships for 1954 and 1955. And I can't tell you what that means. Leroy has done an outstanding job, and we have been given the generosity and the professionalism that we never, ever expected. And we feel like a family here, and we've been so welcomed, and it's just been unbelievable. We feel like we're actually in a dream. And we just want to say thank you very much for inviting us. And my dad, he can see it from the best seat in the house, and he's smiling, and we just want to say thank you very much. This is a huge honor.
What do you think? It's hard to top them.
I guess I don't really need to say anything.
Yeah.
Pretty much said everything, but I agree with both of them. This has been extremely a great honor, and we are just having the grandest time. And I know my father is out there in spirit, and I know the first thing he would have said when he walked into the Hall of Fame, he would have said, "Where's the mat?" He would like to wrestle again.
That's it.
Because there's a few people here that he really enjoyed, and as he grew up in the years, they actually had fun. And that's one thing I know my dad did, was he had fun on the mat. It wasn't a sport. It was fun.
Now, do you guys have any memories of wrestling or hearing about wrestling?
He's our wrestler. He's our wrestler.
Okay.
Well, I remember being on the bottom with my back on the ground with him.
We broke a few doors in the house.
Yeah, I'll
to say
bet.
the least. There's one door in particular I think came off.
And all his daughters are great leg wrestlers.
Yes.
Oh, there you go.
You don't want to take us off.
He taught me a lot of moves.
Did he tell you about the Olympic Games at all, or any of those experiences? I mean, very few people are related to an Olympic athlete, and he brought back a medal for our country.
Yes, he did. I don't really recall him ever talking too much about the Olympics. I know about what he did say, that it was an honor to go there. He did mention he was asked to go back in 1960, but because of his service, it's very difficult for him to get off.
He was active duty.
Plus, he had already had 3 of
Couple
us by
kids,
then.
yeah.
Yeah.
I think one on the way. So,
Yeah.
his devotion was to
Country.
his service and his
And his
family.
family, yes.
Although he thoroughly enjoyed his Olympic experience, there was never, ever anything negative or anything said about it.
Nothing but good things.
Yeah, one of his cherished moments in his life. He probably talked more about his buddies from the Naval Academy as coach.
Yeah.
And some of the guys he wrestled with that are here tonight that were on the team, more so than the actual experience.
Yeah, and the fun things were he talked a lot about the opening ceremony and how different it is today because it wasn't televised at that time.
Right.
It was 1956, and at that time they actually got to walk with who they wanted to instead of walking with their country, their state or country, excuse me. And it was kind of neat because he got to actually mingle and meet people along the way, and it's just hard to imagine when you just came out of the Beijing Olympics how organized and how
Right.
everybody was in almost a regimented situation. He actually got to enjoy the Olympics to a point where he walked away from it feeling like he felt the culture and he had an opportunity to meet the other athletes. And he's been friends with some of the other athletes for his entire life. He did tell us a few funny stories, like he had to lose a lot of weight for the Olympics. So
Right.
when he got into the Olympics, he talked about, I can't wait to go down under so I can try a good steak. Remember this? And he said the steak in Australia was absolutely amazing. So it's always been a dream of all of ours to go back to Melbourne and see what our dad actually lived. Another thing he talked about was the plane ride over there. You know, it was always funny. My dad, he walked in the room and just lit it up. He was barrel roll laugh. He made everybody feel the energy that he had. So when he talked about the Olympics, it was always something about a good thing. But one thing I remember that was not so good is when he was going out there was a huge flight. You can imagine how far Australia is.
Oh, yeah.
And he happened to be on the same plane as the Olympic gymnast team from the Americas. And it was horrible because these guys were doing cartwheels in the aisle and they were doing all kinds of springy things. And he kept saying, if I never see another gymnast again. And that was the only negative thing I heard about the Olympics. But when he walked away, it was kind of funny. He was so humbled by what he had been through. My dad was not one to ever talk about his accomplishments. And is that true?
That's right. Really
And
was.
so he never really spoke about being an NCAA champion.
Right.
I'm a Naval Academy graduate, and I walked into something I had no idea. I never knew this man was on the Wall of Fame, so I was over here overwhelmed when I walked into my first cleat wrestling class, and Ed Perry, who's here today, we're all just so amazed by this. Ed Perry said, "This is Peter Blair's daughter, and I want you to know, there's no stronger man out there." And I needed a grade in wrestling. Do you think any midshipman was going to wrestle me after what he just said? So he made my life difficult. My dad made it hard for me to fill those shoes. And I know both these guys wanted to go to the Naval Academy. So, you know, we all have different vocations in life. At this point in time, we just feel very blessed. Our dad, even though he didn't share all his stories, the ones we do have and the ones you all at the National Hall of Fame have been able to fill, you've actually filled these gaps we have never had because he almost didn't talk about the detail. And now, for the first time in my life, I'm meeting the people he talked about. I'm meeting the coaches. He was so much in admiration. I mean, the people we've met this weekend I never imagined it. I mean, this... I'm sorry to talk so
I'll
much.
add one thing about his Olympic experience that was probably 30 years later.
Yeah.
He was already out of the Navy and working for a private company, and he was doing some work for Iran. I think they were shipping some stuff out there.
Absolutely.
And he lost an Iranian that became a national hero.
Right.
And he was talking to this guy, and the guy knew who he was because he was a national hero. And Dad said that he heard that he committed suicide, and the guy goes, "That was just a story. He was killed because he was a strong leader in the country against the political regime at the time." And since that point in time, my dad really had appreciation for being American.
Well,
To have a country that you can
absolutely.
say what you feel and not be in trouble for it.
You must have a lot of pride, not only in his wrestling, but also his service to the country. I mean,
Oh, absolutely.
and you have an opportunity here to meet a lot of other people that have learning
I don't
about
mean to say
him.
this wrong, but you know, he loved his family, but his order of priority was God, country, family, and he was there always for us. But to be honest with you, if he had to go overseas, I don't know how many birds in his life he saw, but he had 6 kids, and I don't know how many he was actually there for. 6-month deployments and submarines. For him to retire at 20 years was the hardest thing he ever did. He never wanted to leave the military.
Right.
You know, but unfortunately, it just was the time because he was going to be sent overseas and his family meant that much to him. So at that point in time, he made the decision he had to, but he had a retirement that was unbelievable. I mean, his career was just amazing.
His life was.
His life was. We need to write a book on this man.
Well, I'd like to thank you guys for your time. And
Thank
I
you.
wasn't sure exactly who or how to interview, so I'm really happy that all 3 of you were willing to talk a little bit about your dad and share a little bit about the experience you've had with the Hall of Fame this weekend.
Thank you. This has been unbelievable. Thanks for all you've done.
Thank you.
Take care.
Take care.